Hello. So, as some of you saw, I bought the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro, a true mouthful of a camera. But some of you might be wondering, didn't you own the Ursa Mini Pro? And isn't the Ursa Mini Pro better than the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro? And the answer to both of those would be yes. Kind of. Let's talk about why. So in January 2020, I bought my first cinema camera, the Ursa Mini Pro. Now I work as a DP sometimes, and professionally I'm an AC or camera assistant. So I have experience with a good breadth of cameras, but the reason I went with the Blackmagic was the color science. It simply couldn't be beat for the price. I liked the variety of formats, the usability, and then it was able to rig easy. So what happened? Well, essentially there was an internal electrical issue, and I'll kind of save it for what I already talked about in a previous video, but long story short, it ended up in smoke, basically. So if you want to hear more about that, I have another video on that. It's up here or down in the description, either way. Wait till the end of this video. But basically, that meant I was without a camera for a while. Well, 2021 rolls around and Blackmagic releases the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. Now, before the Ursa Mini, I had looked at pocket cinema cameras, but I was never really a fan because of how weirdly they were designed. So I understand why they did it. It's designed to look like a mirrorless camera or a DSLR camera, but it's really more of a cinema camera. So from an AC point of view, I could never kind of get myself to buy one of those. The form factor is a big pain, and it's a real pain to rig up if you need to add batteries, being the screen is non-articulating on the back, at least before the 6K Pro it was. Battery life is pretty lackluster, especially with the, I believe, Canon batteries that it was using before. So they would usually put a V-mount on the back, which again went against the screen. It just wasn't a very well-designed camera all around. So I guess the question really is, were the features good enough to justify the terrible form factor, in my opinion? You might like it, I don't know. And up until the 6K Pro, I had basically said no, because you still had to add ND filters, you know, the battery thing, the screen thing. It was just a whole pain. So what changed with the 6K Pro? Well, before I answer that, consider giving the video a like. It helps the channel a ton, and it tells me and YouTube that there's more of a demand for videos like these. So if they help you out or you got useful information from them, I'd appreciate it. If not, the dislike button works extra well if you hit it twice. So what changed with the 6K Pro? So the answer is actually pretty simple. Built-in NDs, the standard NPF battery type use that extends the battery life a little bit, and then obviously the same color science that's been a little bit improved, and then the raw recording. Don't get it twisted though, I'm not at all endorsing the form factor. I'm still really not a fan, and it's definitely going to be a challenge to rig up. However, it's just about the balance. So the balance finally changed enough for me personally where the features made more sense to deal with the form factor. Now, would I have paid more to get a better body, so potentially something like a red Komodo body with all of these features packed in? Absolutely. You know, maybe I would even pay $1,000 more just to get a better body so it's easier to rig. Frankly, it doesn't even have to have a screen in my opinion. A lot of high-end cinema cameras, honestly even $10,000 cinema cameras at this point, there are some that don't come with screens on them. And that's okay, because cinema cameras usually have external monitors. In fact, a recent short film I shot on the Sony f5, which doesn't actually have a monitor on it at all. It just has a little AC screen, for some reason on the operator side, but regardless, there's no way to actually see the image before attaching an external monitor. And for me, that's still the same for the most part with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. The one benefit is it has an articulating screen, which I do like. If I rig it up, I can kind of tilt the screen so it just faces up and then put a V-mount behind it, and I don't have to worry as much, and I can still access all the menu controls. But I still very much feel that the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro still very much requires an external monitor for most use cases. So with the rear screen, the only time it's really super usable is when it's out in front of you. And the problem with having a camera out in front of you is it gets very heavy very quickly. So if you have a long shoot day, you're really not going to want to hold it. Now there are things that can help you, like an easy rig with a string coming down and it'll hold the camera, and that's definitely a good option to have. However, if you want to use it on a shoulder rig, the screen is going to be behind you, so an external monitor is basically a necessity. If you want to use it on a gimbal, again, you can use the screen and that'll be in front of you, but an external monitor is definitely advisable. So it kind of brings me to my next point, the power solutions for this camera. Now, on a traditional MPF battery, it's 50 minutes, which is a little bit of an improvement, and that's great. But their power solutions are kind of bizarre. So you have a battery grip that attaches onto the bottom. However, then you not only have a wide camera, but you have a tall camera, which you're going to attach heavier lenses. So now you have a very bizarrely balanced camera that seems like it's trying to cosplay as a photography camera. And I really wish Blackmagic would kind of just pick to stay in the cinema camera lane, or make it super light and super small like the original Pocket Cinema camera. Now, I don't even want to talk about rigging with the bottom battery grip, but it's not a super great idea. I'm sure it can be done, but it's just going to be very unwieldy, and really, when you rig a cinema camera, you want it to be as balanced as possible, whether it's going on a Steadicam or even handheld. You don't want the horizon to be shifting side to side, or the camera operator specifically having to try kind of fight with the camera to get the horizon straight. You really want it to sit at a completely level horizon, always. Now, I know I'm somewhat rough on this camera. After all, it's a $2,500 camera that shoots 6K 12-bit RAW on a Super 35 sensor. And that in itself is just mind-blowing. But at the same time, that's the thing. It records 6K 12-bit RAW on a Super 35 sensor. So why are we trying to fit it into a weird mirrorless body when it could fit into a compact Komodo body? With each revision, Blackmagic seems to be making this camera bigger and bigger, which I'm a fan of. I have no problem with making a camera bigger. However, when you make it bigger and bigger in an odd form factor that was meant to go after the DSLR and mirrorless market, I think you're kind of losing the narrative. It's no longer a small compact camera that can just be whipped out and used on a shoot real quick. It now requires a lot more professional rigging and power solutions to kind of make it work completely. But of course, I get it, you can use it in its naked state, but it's at such a size and awkwardness that having to change batteries constantly, changing lenses, all of this gets very weird and unwieldy in such a bizarrely shaped camera package. Okay, so here's me talking directly to Blackmagic. If you're not Blackmagic, you can stay, you can go. I can't control what you want to do. But Blackmagic, please take these internals, maybe make them a little better, although they're pretty good right now, so I'm not complaining at all, I'm just saying. Please make them into an Ursa Micro. The Ursa Mini Pro is arguably too big compared to a lot of the cinema cameras today, like the Red Komodo. Even some of the Canon cameras are quite a bit smaller than the huge Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro. So please make something smaller than that, but bigger, or maybe the same size, but in a better form factor. I think at this point, the mirrorless and DSLR body is no longer that relevant, and nobody, I believe, is buying it for that body size. It's so large and unwieldy, it's almost comical to look at. So please, as a professional AC who wants to use more Blackmagic stuff in the field, give us something that's easier to rig and more compact, that'll fit on Steadicams better, has built-in NDs, maybe an articulating screen or a removable screen like on the FX9, and you can even give it a detachable handle like on the Ursa Mini Pro. That's fine if you want to keep a weird sideways shape. I'm fine with that. As long as it's detachable and I can rig around it, totally okay. That totally works. But please, you will make ACs, DPs, and lone shooters so much happier if you do that and abandon this weird form factor. I'm begging you. But I guess for now, we're stuck with what we have. And if you're looking at the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro, I'm gonna have some more videos on it for you where we rig it out and make it a little more usable. So that's all I have, guys. I hope you learned something. If you have time and enjoyed the video, a like would be much appreciated. Also, subscription if you're interested in more future videos. So that's it, guys. I hope to see you in the next one.